Thank you for browsing page 121. Today we're going to jump into the player's handbook and look at a spell of dubious worth. A 7th level spell, Duo Dimension. Why am I looking at this spell? Well, it's a spell that's always intrigued me. I have used it as a player, and I have used it at least on one occasion as a DM. I'll go over the uses I've put it to in a moment. But right now, it's an alteration spell, 7th level, range is 0, 3 rounds plus 1 round per level, duration, which means you have to be 14th level at least to cast this spell, which means it lasts at least 17 minutes. Area of effect is personal, so only you. Components are verbal, somatic, and material. 7-segment casting time and no saving throw. A duo dimension spell causes the caster to have only 2 dimensions, height and width, but no depth. He or she is thus invisible when sideways turn is made, and this invisibility can only be detected by means of true seeing or similar means. In addition, the duo dimension magic user can pass through the thinnest spaces as long as they have the proper height according to his or her actual length. Now we go to the next page. Love that about the original player's handbook. There we go. Going through the space between a door and its frame is a simple matter. The magic user can perform all actions on a normal basis. He or she can turn and become invisible, move in this state, and appear again next round and cast a spell, disappearing on the following round. Note that when turned, the magic user cannot be affected by any form of attack. But when visible, he or she is subject to triple the amount of damage of normal damage. Thus, a dagger thrust would do 3 to 12 points of damage if it struck a duo-dimensional magic user. Furthermore, the magic user has a portion of his or her existence in the astral plane when the spell is in effect, and he or she is subject to possible notice from creatures thereupon. If noticed, it is 25% probable that the magic user will be entirely brought to the astral plane by attack from the astral creature. The material components of the spell are thin, flat ivory likeness of the spellcaster, which must be of the finest workmanship, gold filigreed and enameled and gem-studded at an average cost of 5,000 to 10,000 gold pieces, and a strip of parchment. As the spell is uttered, the parchment is given a half twist and joined at the ends. The figurine is then passed through the particular loop, or parchment loop, and both disappear forever. So it's a one use. Casting this spell costs you 5,000 to 10,000 gold pieces per time you use it, and you have to keep resupplying this figure, so odds are you're only going to be able to cast it once. So basically, it's a flat Stanley. You get to become this thin little piece of whatever, and you can pass through an area between, for instance, a door jamb and the door itself, as long as you have the height. Now, I would let you get on your hands and knees and crawl through there too, so it could be something smaller than that. You could probably slide your head into a chest, but you'd still have the problem of seeing inside the chest and that sort of stuff. I've always questioned the reason of this spell's existence, because I've never really seen it used except for when I've used it. As a player character, my magic user Stormcrow cast this one time. I just wanted to see if there was any use to it. I paid the requisite amount to have my little flat Stanley guy made and all that, and the answer is no, it's not really that useful, because you're being viewed flat on, so in the thin version where you're invisible and immune to attack, is only good against one creature. You can't really go through a room with like that, because creatures will have different perspectives, and some will see you as Flat Stanley and some will see you as a cartoon. And by the way, speaking of cartoons, I have a feeling whoever wrote this spell had been watching some cartoons when they wrote it. This is definitely a cartoon type spell. And the being in the astral plane is also an issue, because you could possibly be attacked by some astral monster or drawn into the astral plane by that monster. There's no real upside to this spell that I've ever found. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you found a great use for it. I don't know. But I've never found an upside. I used it as a player character, paid all the money, and didn't really get much out of it for my investment. It's one of the most expensive spells in all of D&D to cast, and you just don't gain that much. In fact, the penalty of suffering triple damage is staggering. Again, in my use as my mage Stormcrow, when I cast this just for grins, I couldn't really do anything with it because there were multiple creatures in the room, and I was always side on so they could see me no matter where I moved in the room. Now, one way I did use this as a DM is it was in a regular game. The players had been going through a bunch of rooms in the dungeon that had murals and stuff painted on the walls. Well, one of the places that was painted was an image of a magic user, but the magic user who ran the place and was lurking about and waiting to attack the players had actually used it to conceal himself. He cast Duo Dimension and flattened himself to the wall, taking the place of the magic user in the mural. That worked really well, actually, because I was able to kind of have him reach out a hand, throw a spell, and then go right back into the pose, and they didn't realize that the image had cast the spell. That worked out pretty well. I had a lot of fun with that as the DM. Eventually they figured out, and they just tore this guy to pieces because, he was thin and they had weapons, and it was pretty grisly. As far as the Dungeon Master's Guide, it doesn't really say anything. It refers you to the rules for encountering things in the astral plane, for how you want to have your magic user be spotted by creatures on the astral, and what they might do to him once they see him. So there's not really a ton of information regarding that. But that's really kind of all I've got to say. I consider this a pretty useless spell, unfortunately, but at least it's 5,000 to 10,000 gold pieces each casting. And the material spell components vanish upon completion. So I don't really see a lot of use for this spell. This is a perfect example of somebody who probably came up with this spell, used it once or twice in the dungeon. They said, hey, let's throw it in the player's handbook, and then never really thought about it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you think this is the greatest spell there is. You found it really useful in various things and stuff I'm not thinking about. But the ability to pass through a narrow crack, you can do that with, you can vanish and reappear using Dimension Door, or at 7th level, teleport. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. This spell doesn't give you a ton regarding that. And in fact, the vulnerability the spell gives you of triple damage is actually something that works against it. But that's all I've got today on page 121. I hope you liked what you heard and saw. If you did, please like and subscribe. Tell your friends, still trying to grow the channel. Take a look at the Patreon, see if you can help me out there, help keep the channel on the air. But that's all I've got today. I want to thank you for your time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.